see what it is I'm doing within my bill of materials. What I'm going to show you today is sort of 3 or 4 kind of key use cases that our users use BOMMER for, all represented kind of within the bounds of this fun, exciting project. We also, if you go to the BOMMER YouTube video page, there is a novelty video called There Will Be Bread that shows this in action. It's very entertaining. First thing I'm going to show you, though, is just a straight bill of materials with custom properties. If you're used to custom properties in other CAD software, this should feel pretty straightforward. BOMMER is one of the only ways to generate or to store these types of custom properties within Fusion 360. And the data is stored directly in your Fusion files so that it is synchronized up into the cloud, up into Autodesk's cloud, and shared with your teammates. So if I'm in BOMMER, I click Edit Bill of Materials. Just a second, I get presented with a bill of materials table that shows the properties that I have set up. In this particular case, we're looking at the part name pulled from Fusion 360. The part number and description are also built into Fusion 360. Make, buy, modify is a custom property that I've created. We have the material from Fusion, the bounding box dimensions, and then a post-processing section for notes that I'll talk about in a second. And so the first use case I want to show you is simply editing a bill of materials to enable that this BOM, this spreadsheet that I export, will be a good engineering BOM or EBOM to produce this this device. If I go in here, I can click, I can change, I can modify, I can do whatever it is I need to do to mark or to insert the data into this particular field onto this particular component or line item. And as I said, when I hit OK, all of that data then gets stored in the individual components and then saved in a revision of the Fusion 360 file and then uploaded into the Fusion 360 cloud as needed. But what else can I do with this? Well, the second thing that a lot of our users tend to look for is physical properties around the individual items. So in this particular screen, I've enabled bounding box. So I can look at my bounding box. And in this particular case, I have it because I have Fusion set up, formatting my bounding box dimensions as fractional feet and inches. But I can set that up for architectural standards. I can also set that up for just numbers. These are the dimensions, the longest dimensions and the middle dimensions of the individual parts that I have. And when I'm cutting PVC pipe to fit, it's important. But imagine you were using BOMMER for, let's say, building a cabinet or building a table or some other part of like piece of furniture or whatever. You might need to know board feet that you need to order. You might need to know like what my thickness of my sheet metal would be. And all of that information is available via these BOMMER properties that we pull out of Fusion 360. This data is exactly the same data that you would get by going into the individual Fusion 360 properties. The biggest difference, as you can see, is it's the entire assembly. So if I need to get my entire assembly data out, this is the fastest and easiest way to do so. The next thing I want to show you really quick, if I go over to post-processing, is what we can do with the marriage of the data that we have from Fusion 360 and a little bit of calculations or computations on the BOMMER side. BOMMER, much in the same way as Excel or some of these other tools that we're probably used to, have the ability to put formulas in for computations as part of your bill of materials. And so let's say I, my post-processing operation for this one is drill a 1/8 inch hole in the dome. Okay, that's fine. It's just drill 1/8 inch hole in the dome. But if really what I want to do is spend less time on my BOM, I might want to drive that from whatever parameter or property is already plugged into the 3D model within Fusion 360. And so what I can do actually is pull that PVC IC, which is the 1.135 inch hole, right into a formula the and is a string concatenation. So this is drill, that value, hole, and dome. Now, if I go into Fusion 360 and change my size, which is this is why this existed, is we were going through, we had to or why this exists in this model. So we were going through, we had to update the size of each of the PVC, and we didn't want to have to go edit our bill of materials every time. Now this gets computed when I import or when I export, when I save from those values within Fusion 360. It's one less opportunity for me to make an error or spend time where I'd rather be building my model, or in this particular case, firing dinner rolls at my coworkers. I'm going to take a very small break. Have there been any questions that came in on any of that? That was kind of a whirlwind tour through a couple of key cases. It's just editing your bill of materials. Woodworkers use and other people use the bounding box dimensions to get the dimensions of the material or the dimensions of their surroundings. And then you can use formulas for, as I've mentioned here, string operations, post-processing instructions, unit conversions, and so on and so forth. So have there been any questions come in about any of that?
No questions yet, Jesse, but it does look like we have quite a few more people joining us currently. So I will take this chance to mention to all of you, if any of you actually want to sign up for our much more in-depth webinar later, go ahead and do so down in the link below. It'll take you to our landing page. Also, keep in mind, on that landing page, you guys can actually go out and get a free trial of this as you're seeing it with Jesse himself demonstrating it. But any questions anybody has, feel free to put them in the chat. We are dealing with about a 30-second delay, but Jesse, go ahead and just keep going. And I think everybody's speechless at this point or can't get to the keyboard fast enough, man.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, yeah, as Phil said, just shout out the questions. Don't feel bad about interrupting. Happy to answer any and all questions you have. So we've talked a little bit about editing the bill of materials. Now I want to talk about setup. And one of the challenges that a lot of this software tends to present its users is like, it's hard to set up. It requires consultants. It maybe is unobvious. You might have to write some code for it. We said that wasn't necessary. So if you try BOMMER, if you go and give the trial via the landing page that Phil mentioned, and you need to get this set up, well, first thing you do is install it. Second thing you do is, go through the init process, set terms and conditions, all that fun stuff. And then the third thing you do is you hit the settings page. This is how you add properties into BOMMER. So by default, we're going to ship with a bunch of these built-in properties. We're pulling part name and part number and description out of Fusion 360. We're computing item number and quantity. When you export a spreadsheet, we're going to compute or capture a thumbnail so that you see exactly what those properties might, or what the parts look like on each line item. If I hit the plus button and scroll down to the bottom, I get a blank line. And let's say I want post-processing operation. Just by adding this line item, clicking OK, defines a new custom property that I can now edit in my bill of materials to be stored with the data, or with the model itself. And so you don't have to do a whole lot of setup. You can evolve your setup over time. And then once you have, or setup to start, you can evolve your setup over time. And once you have your BOMMER settings configured, you can export a file that you then send to your, like a settings file that you then send to your teammates, to people who are going to be using BOMMER to look at your data, and then everyone's on the same page. Many of our users get up and running in minutes instead of hours or days or whatever. And so it's really easy to, like, once you've accepted the free trial, to start actually seeing if it's going to work for you. And my guess is it'll probably work for you. On that note, once we have this bill of materials, and actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to pause just for a second and make sure that I'm not going to share anything I can't share. Cool. Sorry about that. So on that note, if I do need to export this bill of materials to Excel, it's again just a click. I move over here. I have a number of different things that I can control here, whether it's a flat or hierarchical BOMM, top level only BOMM, or parts only. I can decide to show or hide things that I've excluded from my BOMM, or parts that I've marked as assemblies that I've marked as parts, so that I suppress everything underneath it. Might be useful for, say, motors or pumps or other things that you order once, but they've given you a more complicated model. And then I can pick what properties I want. I want the thumbnails, and I want the post-processing operations, and yeah, I'll go ahead and throw in the bounding box as well. You can see mass properties are options as well, but I'll leave those for now. So once I click OK, it's going to go through. It's going to capture everything. It used to hide this window. I think Fusion made an update to their windows, and now we don't get to see the dance behind the screen. But you can kind of see things flying in. It's doing a dance to capture everything, and then in just a second we will see the export. So this is going to be the bread roll gun rev 00. It asks me if I want to open it. I click yes. It'll fire up Excel, and now you can see with just a few clicks, it's really easy to get my bill of materials out of Fusion 360 with my thumbnails, with all my custom properties. And this is another very, very common use case for our users. They will build their bill of materials, but ultimately they might need to do something with it, whether that be send it to someone or upload it into a downstream system like ERP or PLM. This is the 3-click way to get your BOMM out of BOMMER, out of Fusion 360, and into a spreadsheet that you can then do something with. Cool. Still good so far?
We are so good so far, it looks like. Still no questions, but I see more and more viewers joining us constantly. So I think they're starting to get the hang of it. And they're starting to like what they see. I know overall there was some kind of questions that we've had with customers in-house. And Jesse, I think we've talked about this, but the idea of having a BOMM quantity versus an order quantity, is that something I can do with BOMMER's custom settings?
Great. And so, yes, absolutely. In fact, if I were to add a new property here, go to general, call it order quantity, the way that we have this in BOMMER, and I realize actually this comes default setup, but it looks like we might have removed it when we were working on the bread roll shooter. If I click the 3 dots here within my settings, I get some other options here. One of them is to set a default value for when a value is not inserted into the field. I can set a default value of property. I can tell it to pull its default from quantity. And just for simplicity's sake, let's go ahead and put this up here. So that'll be right after order quantity. So now what will happen is when I go into my BOMM, all of those order quantities will automatically be set to the quantity. That's what the default value default property means, is it pulls that value in from that property or that field automatically. But you can see this is editable. So if I say, actually, you know what, I need 3 air fill valves instead of 1 because I want 2 spares, boom. And now when I hit OK, I save this. If I export order quantity instead of quantity, I'll get the 3 in that field instead of the 1. You can also build that using formulas. So if you have, I don't know, you want to do like, well, it's not going to do this here, but let's say I want, this is going to be quantity times, 15% more quantity. Well, it's like 2 doesn't really make that much difference, but imagine, if you will, this is like 100, what do you call it? Screws or bolts or whatever, but I want 15% more for just to have them. I can now compute that as part of my bill of materials by using a formula in the order quantity field.
Awesome. So somebody did just text me, as funny as it is, one of our customers, and they're asking can you do like a roundup equation in that case though, inside those windows, or is that something that BOMMER is looking to add near? where we can
Yeah,
actually say quantity 1.15 roundup type of
great,
scenario.
great question. So we support floor, ceiling, and round. Round takes it looks at the halfway mark and goes south or north from there. But that's a great question. So in this particular case, if we use the seal function or the seal formatting function, 2.3 becomes 3 so that we always like slightly over order instead of slightly under order.
Yeah.
Our Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, we definitely, obviously, you could dive a little deeper in on that, but I did get another question here. It looks like Eric Miller out there is asking, he saw you do that Excel spreadsheet output. Does it still work the same with Google Sheets? He's not really asking if he needs to see it. He's just curious because in his company, they don't use Excel, right?
That's a really good question. Google Sheets is on our list of outputs to support. Right now, it's Excel and it's CSV. But
Okay.
one of the other things that many of our users will do is they'll export an Excel file and then use Google Drive file stream to automatically synchronize that into their Google Drive or Google Sheets. But it is
Awesome.
coming.
Yeah, so I got another one that just came in also. They were kind of curious. So you did a quantity and an ordered quantity, and they were just, you don't have to show it, of course, but they were curious if you could do like a increment of measure, right? So for example, 4-inch PVC cap, probably not the best example, but if you wanted to order, say, 12 pounds or 12 each or 12 sticks, whatever somebody's increment is at the end of the day, that would probably be another really good use case. Very simple to set up, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's generally speaking, the rule of thumb is as long as you have I mean, it's probably a formula, and as long as you have the elements of the formula captured as either design parameters or as other properties, you can write the formula to. I mean, a great example of that is quantity times longest dimension gives you the total length of whatever material you might need to of bar or plank or whatever type of material. Um, and then typically you would multiply that by some number of potential waste or overrun.
No, 100%. I mean, that would actually work really good for a lot of our woodworking shops that are looking for linear feet for sure when it comes to ordering material. I know last week we did just do that video on making a very quick cabinet. So if you're using some 1x2s for all your rails and stiles on a cabinet face, I mean, BOMMER would fit perfect for being able to calculate your linear feet in order to make those cabinets. That's awesome, Jesse. I'm going to let you get back to it. Anything else that you want to show? I know we're coming up here on a 20-minute mark, and we like to keep these short because we don't want to give away all the answers to everybody before our webinar on May 25th. So what well, let's go ahead and do one more crazy thing before we go ahead and call this quits today. Oh, I like this. You're pulling up the drawings. We all know Fusion drawings a little too well, right?
Absolutely. So I won't dwell too much on this because there's a lot we can talk about here in the drawings. But I did want to say one thing, and this was by far and away our most requested feature of the last couple of years that I think we've gotten a pretty good solution for. We build drawing tables with BOMMER as well. These tables look an awful lot like Fusion 360's tables once I have items added into them. Here's the difference, is I can control specifically what rows go into my tables. I can control what properties go into my tables. Any custom property you have defined within BOMMER can go into your tables. And you can have multiple tables. And so where we've seen people use these, and I'll plan on doing a much bigger demo at the webinar in the end of May, is we've seen people use these tables for hardware. We've seen them build cut lists out of them, in addition to like the Fusion 360 parts list. We've seen, like I said, Fusion 360 parts list for like top level, and then BOMMER for just very specific dialed in items. You can kind of do whatever you want, and that's sort of like our sort of like what's it called, like our guiding light is we want engineers and designers and people who use this to kind of do whatever they want, and we want to enable it as quickly as possible.
I actually just thought of a really interesting use case considering this, the way you have this configured and set up, though, is you could almost just make a user field for who's making what part or responsible, or is it an ordered versus manufactured, to really streamline the process of being able to organize these out, right, Jesse?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, literally anything you want here. It's where we've seen people do, like we've seen people add in who's responsible. We've seen people add in manufacturing notes, kind of like the well, in fact, I can even show you if I go and let's just say I want to change out dimension for that operation. Um, Now we start to have the actual manufacturing operation that needs to be done in order to produce P00003 and 00001. Um, and because this is Fusion 360, our goal is to integrate as tightly with Fusion 360 as possible. If you change this on the design side, you hit the link button up here to change it on the drawing side, we will automatically re-render all of the tables to be accurate and complete and up to date.
Awesome. I guess one other question I just got in before we go ahead and wrap this up is they were curious based on that table. Is there a filter property to that table where I can quickly grab all buy items and host them? Or is it kind of I have to filter through manually currently?
That's a really good question. Today, there is not, but it is on our short list. It'll be available pretty soon. I don't want to say in the next couple of months, but we're in the process of making some really big changes to both of the table interfaces that you saw, and filtering is a big deal in those changes. So stay
Awesome.
tuned. Sure.
So I mean, in my case, for anybody and everybody watching this video, if you guys want to see something like a much faster filtering tool, please leave a comment down below about that so that Jesse and his team knows what to prioritize at the end of the day. So Jesse, I appreciate everything. If you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen, again, to anybody and everybody out there, we love having you guys to do this. If you're catching this after the fact, is again, sign up for that webinar May 25th down below. The link is in the bio. Also, keep in mind, guys, if you want more live content versus recorded, we're happy to do either one here with our Fusion Friday segment. That being said, is again, leave a comment if you want more live, you prefer recorded. We love it. And given next Friday, I'm still up in the air whether or not I'll be live, but I know the Friday after that, May 5th, we are going to have our guest BOMMER from NexGenCAM. He's going to be going over ProdSmart and the value there. Jesse, I think ProdSmart is also one of those things on your roadmap, right?
Yeah, so we like it, and as I mentioned, it's we try to integrate as tightly as possible with the tools that we integrate into. What I didn't show today is we do have the ability to pull in manage extension data like the item number that is generated or the workflow state. ProdSmart is another one that we've been working on trying to pull in or push data into because it's just such a natural flow of you're going from the designer or the design desk, now you want to go into the manufacturing desk, the job shop, et cetera, and so forth. Um, don't have a whole lot to update on that yet, but it is definitely on our radar.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse, for your time. Anybody and everybody, go out there. In my case, it's 4:30. It's almost 5 o'clock where I am. I know a lot of you guys live for the weekend, and if you're working overtime, go get that double time. Thanks again, Jesse. You all have a good one.